Hello, welcome back to the Your Everyday Strength podcast. My name is Josh Sternberg, and if you're just joining us here for the first time, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. If you are returning, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Today's guest, if you haven't already read the title, which I'm assuming you would have if you've already clicked it, is none other than the man himself, Mr. Jamie Smith. As always with our guests, we're just going to let it flow, let it run, see what happens. But I will pass it over to Jamie. He can introduce himself, tell you a little bit about who he is, if you don't already know, and we'll go from there. So welcome, good sir. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Who am I? I'm a coach. I'm an educator. I ran a gym, Melbourne Strength Culture, for 9.5 years and decided to close it at the end of last year and go full time on my education business, which is Training Model. And I just help coaches and allied health professionals better understand the strength training outcomes that we're all looking for and how to better coach them and hopefully not fall into the same traps I did throughout my career. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's very short, very succinct.
Lots of changes in the last few years, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we've been chatting back and forward for about a year now, nearly, trying to organize this podcast and just get things lined up and all the rest of it. And there has been so much change since throughout that period as well for you, and for myself as well, really. But give us a little bit of a rundown for those who maybe have never actually seen you or heard of you before, in terms of like the background to Melbourne Strength Culture, because you said that was 9.5 years, but you've been in the industry for a bit longer than that now.
Yeah. I'm 14 years in, maybe 15, probably 15 towards the end of this year. Like most people in the industry, started as just like a PT, just running sessions, small gym I was working out of, tried commercial gyms and never really found success, moved to a smaller studio and definitely found my feet there a little bit in the early days, 14 years ago, just running PT sessions and sort of building my own thing alongside running my undergrad of sports science. And then eventually went through a few iterations of what I wanted my career to look like, but eventually I ended up interning over in America with Eric Cressy and Cressy Sports Performance, if anyone knows that name or that gym, over in Boston or Massachusetts, not so much Boston, but up in Massachusetts. I did that for 6 months, and then from that I realized, all right, I think I could have a real crack at running a gym. So came home, opened Melbourne Strength Culture in 2016. And ran that all the way up until the end of last year. And I think if anyone knows the gym or what we were about, like, I think we had a very positive impact in a lot of circles in the strength training and powerlifting spaces around Melbourne and Australia, which was awesome. But eventually it kind of just was no longer fulfilling my cup anymore and adding just too much stress, too much anxiety to my life, and becoming a new dad and having challenges in personal life from like 2000 and just at the end of COVID. Whenever COVID fucks my brain. I don't know when it ended. Whenever COVID ended, kind of that portion, like 3 years on from there, was a very challenging personal journey for my partner and myself with our trying to become parents. And those two things, me starting to hate work and then also the personal stuff, turned into a very challenging period, and eventually coming out the other end of becoming a dad and sort of just putting my ducks in order a little bit more, with kind of what I want from my career and what I want to do. And just the gym no longer served those purposes for me anymore. And it was a very difficult decision, but I must admit, since making the decision, which was probably like September-ish last year, the formal decision, and then the process up until December to close it, I have been feeling significantly more happy, positive about just everything. So I think it was just, it run its course, which is sad, but also everything good has to come to a close at some point. And yeah,
100%.
A bit of a journey.
I think that there's like a really good lesson in there for people, because you obviously dedicated quite a large majority of your life up until that point to Melbourne Strength Culture. And for those who may not know MSE or like the background of it all or anything like that, like it quite literally was up at the upper echelon of what strength training could be and was within Australia, and definitely Melbourne, and the culture that was created just rung true around so many different gyms. And even being on the Gold Coast when I was at Nexus and working with Will and all the rest of it, and just having, I think Alex at one point as well, who'd done the mentorship with you guys and with you boys, and bringing that sort of aspect of the culture through to Nexus and really having that effect that it did. Sometimes like people would almost never want to give that up out of fear, out of like, oh, I've spent so much time, effort, energy, money, sleepless nights trying to make this thing work. What was it that sort of actually really made you in the end just go, okay, I think this is where the rubber meets the road and it's time to close the doors?
Yeah. Throughout COVID, when the business just had to pivot online, so like prior to, I kind of put it as two separate sections. It's like pre-COVID and post-COVID. Like pre-COVID, it was just a gym. Like we were just pumping in person. We had a little bit of online coaching related things and like dabbled in content creation and all of that sort of stuff. But COVID just forced our hand and forced everything to go online for a couple of years there in Melbourne. I don't know, you weren't in Melbourne then, but most lockdown city in the world through that period. So we were in and out of these massive lockdowns, and just me being who I am, I was like, well, I need to make the best of this situation. Even though it's fucked, I just want to play Warzone. I need to make the best of this situation, and I still played a shit ton of Warzone. But
Fuck yeah.
yeah, Jay Banger Maletti, if anyone was out there and getting killed by me or killing me. But yeah, through that period, like everything just had to go online, and then I started just building an online business that kind of was supported by the gym. It kind of flipped in a lot of ways, to the point where coming out of COVID and all the way up until we closed the doors, we actually had more online clients than in-person clients, which is pretty odd to say for like a gym that was pretty big. And I had 3 full-time coaches there, and like we were staffed a lot of the days. And but it was basically an online business that had a really cool gym that we used and leveraged to our advantage with content, with podcasts, with all of that sort of stuff. Obviously a fantastic community in there as well. But coming out of COVID and moving and building things online, I moved all my education stuff to being online. I kind of stopped running in-person internships because the online space was just significantly more attractive to people. So just as the online business started to grow, and then I started to recognize that like, wow, like I've got this massive space, and every time I tried to put effort and energy into building the space up and building the in-person memberships, it always just kind of reflected back with more online growth. And I never really worked out how to do that very well with the two rolling together. And about a year after COVID, we had our we were struggling to fall pregnant. We had a miscarriage, a pretty traumatic miscarriage with COVID related restrictions at the hospital, and no one was able to be with Laura, and it was just terrible in so many ways. And that's kind of where some of my like anxiety just around life, I guess, started. I don't know if it was that particular moment, but it was just in that patch of my life. And in that year, so this was probably like 2022, in that year, it kind of got to the point where I actually didn't want to be at the gym, which is really, really weird to say as somebody, as you said, like I've put at that point like 7 years of my every waking moment into building this thing and growing this thing, developing the staff, developing the community, building this thing up. And it got to the point where I actually hated being there. And I owned the building as well. Like it was a very weird situation where like this should be my safe space, and I just didn't want to be there. And it kind of culminated in me completely pulling back my coaching hours, completely dismantling my coaching roster. So I was no longer coaching anyone. I kind of pivoted directly to just trying to make myself a business owner. And that's when the directional change with content really started to change. I was like, well, let's see if I can really push an online business. If I don't want to be here at the gym and coaching here at the gym, and I don't really feel comfortable here for whatever reason, I went through therapy and stuff related to it all and tried to unpack it all. But that was when it kind of really started for me, where I was like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I've got this space, I've got this thing that should be filling my cup, but it's actually doing the complete opposite and making me anxious, making me not want to work, making me not want to be here. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just a very challenging period of my life. So that was when the thoughts started popping in. And then 6-12 months kind of go past, and I was like, oh, well, like, let's just try a couple other things. And I put more responsibility on the boys, which was fantastic. They were a fantastic staff to be working alongside with and building the thing up with. And they kind of relished in that, and they took all those opportunities and grew. And but that underlying feeling of like, I don't think I actually want to be doing this anymore was just always present. I tried to dip my toes back into coaching a couple of times, and I built a little bit of a roster up, and then I kind of just like fell back off and was like, I don't really want to do this. And the one mainstay through the whole thing was my education stuff. I just fucking loved it. Every time I had an intake, I loved it. Every time I was chatting with coaches about my stuff, about my model, about my education things, and helping coaches better understand the stuff. Like, that was always the thing that I'd finish those calls and I'd kind of feel relief. Like, I actually there's parts of this that I fucking love still. And that feeling just never went away. And I just, 2 more challenging years with pregnancy related stuff. And it got to last year. My partner had hyperemesis. I'm really on a rant here, but my partner had hyperemesis. Do you know what that is?
I'm not fully across it all, but I've
Yeah,
heard of
so
it. I've seen some stuff through you guys.
yeah, so like, morning sickness is very common. Obviously, it's generally just like the first trimester, though, like 12 to 14 weeks. Most women, it kind of just dissipates and it just moves on. They stop vomiting, they stop feeling sick. Hyperemesis is basically that ongoing. Sometimes it pulls back at like the mid 20 week mark. So like towards the end of the second trimester. For some people, it carries the whole way through, and Laura had that for both of her pregnancies. The second one, though, was extreme. Medications weren't helping. She also developed POTS, which is an autoimmune disease, from the stress on her system, to the point where she couldn't walk, she couldn't get out of bed, she couldn't eat, she couldn't drink. We were in and out of hospital multiple times. We had a 5-day stint over Mother's Day weekend. This was all last year. And I just basically made the decision to just be at home. I was like, this is just not worth it. Like, I need to be at home. I need to support Laura. We had an 18-month-old. I was like, right now, my life is not working. It's not trying to battle my way through this business and do all this stuff that fundamentally I kind of knew underneath it. I was like, I'm not enjoying this anyway. It's not really fulfilling me. So I gave all the responsibility to the staff, to the boys. And I was like, look, I'll probably come in once a week. I'll put out some fires, but I'm probably not going to be here. And I basically took 6 months off last year, and then to just be at home with Laura. And then towards the back end of that, like August, September, I tried to sell it. I would put process in place. It got pretty far along that path, and then it eventually kind of fell through right at the end. And I was like, I'm done. I've just fired off the email to the members. Obviously, told the staff, fired off the email to the members. And since that day, I have just felt free, which is weird. It's very weird. The business wasn't failing. The business wasn't struggling. Wasn't where I wanted it to be, especially after taking 6 months off. But it wasn't like a financial thing. It was rolling. We still had over 100 active members across the gym and online coaching. And yeah, it just, I don't know, my life, my personal life, my business life just came together last year, and it just blew up. And I was like, I think it's time for something fresh. So it was a bumpy few years.
Firstly, I want to say thank you for sharing all of that, because like, I know we said at the very start, like, you'd have had a lot going on, and being able to openly share all that is super appreciated by me, but I'm sure anyone who's listening, to just get a bit of an insight to to the things that can be going on in the background. Because a lot of people, people say it all the time. It's like, you never know what someone's actually going through. And I'm sure, everybody's experienced it where things are happening external to what you know of, and someone might be acting a little bit differently, or things are just a little bit off, and people always want to try and find a solution to it, and oftentimes they just can't. But like listening to that and hearing it all, it sounds as if, and I know Laura's really big on all of this sort of stuff, like intuition. Seems as if your body was like, no, like this is,
Yeah, I squashed it for
we're
a few
done
years,
here.
and yeah,
And it happens. Like I know myself personally, like I know there's been plenty of times where I've overridden my intuition and taken it away from, like, I know what I should be doing and I'm going to go and do this instead. And you kind of keep doing it and keep doing it. And it's like, it'll whisper. And then all of a sudden it's screaming at you.
yeah,
And I guess it's not too dissimilar to the body, right? People get injuries, but it doesn't start as an injury for the most part. It's like a little niggle or just a little soreness or a little bit of extra something. And then over time, it continues to just build and build and build until you can't ignore it anymore.
yeah,
And that sounds like it was for you, but with the launch of Training Model, and obviously throughout this entire period, I know we've spoken off and on for years, and I've been fortunate enough to attend one of your workshops and see the online stuff that you provide and produce, and even just being a part of, I think you had a Discord or something for a while as well. I was a part
yeah,
of some chat, or
yeah,
it might have even just been Instagram. It could just be the Instagram group. But seeing you sort of, how active you were in that and how excited you were by all of that, and even just the way in which you're expressing like your feedback, and not just sharing the feedback from a marketing standpoint to be like, oh, please come and do this for other people, but like jumping on, and you could hear the enthusiasm in your voice when you were talking about like, this is what we ran through in this week's call and the boys did this and this and that. And it's like, fuck, okay, cool. That's where you thrive in at the moment. Like go all in.
yeah.
Like
I think
that's,
I think for since I started doing the educate, like for me, it started with internships. So we just had a couple of members. This was like year 2 of Strength Culture, maybe even towards the end of year 1. A couple of members were doing their either EP or sports science degrees, and they had to do placements. And both of them were at the same time being like, just fucking run something here so we can do it here. We want to learn. So it was like it was never like a forced thing. It was kind of just like this reactive thing to set up the education stuff. And since that first intake of our in-person internship in 2017, whenever it was, it has always been the thing I've enjoyed the most. I don't know what it is. Part of that was like the original culture YouTube channel content as well. Like just me at a whiteboard talking about different anatomy things and just application to lifting and training. And I always got good feedback from it. A lot of people would just initially were like, man, I'm learning so much from this stuff. And then the internships took off, and the progression of that was then through COVID, it turned into online stuff. And then it was like, hey, this is actually viable. Like it was just a very organic process. And it has just always been the thing I just fucking loved. And I've always wanted to do more of it, but I always kind of got sidetracked back with the gym stuff. And then it got to the point where it was basically, that was my job. Especially in the last couple of years, like my job was just Training Model. I was running it part-time. I separated from Strength Culture because a lot of people were confused as what actually Strength Culture was. So I was like, oh, I need to rebrand all of this stuff and kind of just run it myself. So I separated it like 2 years ago to Training Model, and then did a couple of intakes with that and a couple of other little things and bits and pieces. And coming through last year, I was like, I've got this thing that I know can support me. I've got this thing that I know that I fucking love. Like, I'm not just jumping off the end and hoping something lands. I'm like, I've got a viable thing to do. What is possible if I just went all in on it? And that's what this year's been. So, yeah, I don't know what it is about it. I just fucking love it.
it's so interesting you say that about like you kind of feeling a little bit lost as to what it is itself that actually drives that aspect. Because ever since I first started as a coach, as a PT, like whatever people want to call it back in the day, one of my biggest things has always been wanting to educate other coaches and helping other coaches to learn. Because the way I've always looked at it and the way I've seen it in my brain is like, as coaches working one-to-one with people, we're kind of limited to a degree with the capacity. So realistically speaking, to give a premium service, you could probably cap at about 50 clients, realistically. But if you had, and that's just 50 people, that's all you're impacting at that one particular point in time. But if you have 20 coaches and those 20 coaches have 20 to 50 clients themselves, it's like straight away you've gone from just being able to help 50 people to hundreds of people. And then that information just trickles down. And as I said, like there was aspects of the things you guys were teaching at Melbourne Strength Culture that we were teaching at Nexus, and we were integrating with our own clients. And it's like, well, now it's just getting passed down. Like you were passing things down to Will was passing them down to me, I was passing them down to other coaches. And it's like this reoccurring thing of just helping raise the standard and actually seeing people thrive, because we all really got into coaching PT for the same thing, is like helping people.
Yeah,
It's just being
100%.
able to help more people on a larger scale. I've always been very similar in terms of like, there's been aspects where like coaching for me, I'm just like, oh, fuck, okay.
I think everyone goes through it.
I have to do this. But then anytime I've ever done mentoring with coaches or even just troubleshooting with some of my clients who are coaches with their own clients, you just have that little spark come back.
Yeah,
Like,
we
fuck,
used to
this is
call
why I
them
love this shit.
we used to call them inquisitive lifters. They were our favorite clients, with the people that just had that little tick in them to be like, actually, I want to know what the fuck's going on here. Like, why is this way? And they're always the best people to help from a client perspective. Well, at least I found that. But yeah, like I don't know exactly what it is. Like if someone was to be like, why do you enjoy this? I don't even think the first thing that would come to my mind would be that, like I want to have a big impact. I want to there's just something about it I just fucking love. I don't know. I love having like the initial, like I've just started a new intake. So we're in week 2 of the live calls, which is kind of like week 4 of the actual mentorship. First 2 weeks of pre-learning, like just pre-recorded, like little model outline ideas, principle-based stuff. And even just like the first live call, like people are like, oh, I'm a little bit confused by X, Y, and Z, or in the Discord, there's a couple of questions. And in the back of my head, I'm like, just wait, give it a couple more weeks to land. And already like in the second call or the third call, which was yesterday, a few people are like, actually, I've started trying that and it's already helping. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I don't know. There's just something in I don't know if it's problem solving. I don't know if it's helping coaches recognize what they could actually be capable of doing. And a lot of people, and especially in the anatomy landscape, I'm autistic for anatomy, but a lot of people get scared by anatomy and think, I think they've probably learnt it poorly. And it stems from university-based education process around anatomy. But they get scared by it, or they think they're not good at it. They think, but in the back of my head, I'm like, no, you just haven't learnt it in a productive way that applies directly to coaching. And then all of a sudden these light bulbs, I don't know, there's something, I just love it. I don't know what it is. I just love it.
That's
Yeah.
sick. I like it. Even hearing you talk about it now, like you're lighting up. You're fucking, you're more expressionful. It's good though, but that's what people want. That's what people need. It's that passion. It is like, I've gone to university. I've done exercise science myself. When I was sitting there having disagreements with my lecturers because they'd only learned out of a textbook and sat there in the room for 20 years doing nothing but teaching students whatever the textbook says. And I'm like, I was already, 5-6 years into my coaching journey at that point. And I was like, no, I was like, that's not the case. Like, this is when you work with real people in the real world and you are doing some crazy things, like obviously predominantly at that point for me as well, it was powerlifting. It's like, yeah, that anatomy aspect might be true for somebody just standing there doing nothing. But you go put 300 kilos on someone's back and then tell me how they're going to be able to balance or do this or do that. And you're like, that shit doesn't work. You need to actually understand, yes, the anatomy aspect. And I think everybody should learn anatomy way more than the Cert 3-4 teach for sure.
It's the
but then it's that actual like understanding of like, how does this work functionally? How does this work in practice? Not just what the textbook and the fucking skeleton in the closet says.
Yeah, 100%. I think anatomy is the foundation of our job. Obviously, like the psychology side of it, adherence and all of that is if you don't have that, you're never going to win anything. But just X's and O's of our job, X's and O's, like the actual hard skill that we're doing, it's force applied to anatomy. So if you don't understand the anatomy stuff, I think it's a big red flag. and I'm just lucky enough to just find it fascinating. Every time I read something, I'm just like, this is cool. And I don't know. I love it. Yeah.
You made the joke about the tism for anatomy and
I got tism for a
like,
whole bunch of stuff, but that is definitely one.
well, I mean, even I know that like over the last few years, as you mentioned, like going through your therapy journey and stuff like that, like you were diagnosed with ADHD,
Yep.
um, throughout that sort of
Actually,
post-COVID sort
that
of
was another
era.
trigger. That was another trigger for me in recognizing more apparently that what I was doing was no longer serving me. She made me do this.
Uh,
My psychologist made me do this process. And actually, Alex Hormozy talks about this more in just like a business sense, but she made it. She made me do this traffic light system. At the end of every 30-minute block throughout my working day, I had to write down what I did and then traffic light it. Green, loved it, enjoyed it, felt good doing it. Orange was like, just had to get it done. Red was like avoidant, anxiety, kind of like leave it, kind of very distracted, like all of that sort of stuff. And she made me do it for a 2-week process, 2-week period. And once I went through that thing, um, it was glaring that all of the red lights were related to running the gym. And it was to the point where it was back, and like I was just completely unaware of it before I started like actually like going through the process of like trying to identify where this anxiety is stemming from, where these feelings are drumming up from, um, to the point where like I started like dissecting my day and like just put all of the gym based work at the start of the day. It's kind of like just drudge through it. I had the analogy when I was discussing it. It felt like I was in mud, like it was just couldn't get out of the car park, like just something as simple as that. Like I just sit in the car for fucking 25 minutes before I came into the office, and like just like mud. Everything around it was just mud. I was just thick in mud trying to do anything. Distracted, just fucking avoidant. Um, and then it was literally like my day would flip to my education stuff, and I'd leave the day being like, I fucking love this. Like I've got a pep in my step coming home, and then the dread starts. Like tomorrow morning, I've got to go through that process again. Like actually spending time with the psychologist and doing all of that. In that process was the ADHD. That was starting to come through in that time, but that was one of the things that definitely helped me identify the issue with my situation. Yeah.
it's so interesting though, because as you said yourself, like you wouldn't have necessarily placed awareness upon that
No.
unless you were told to by an external force. Like
Yeah.
you would have probably, and I know I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who have these peaks and troughs throughout their day and they're like, why is this the thing? There's always work we avoid doing. It's always like, oh, okay, I got to do this as a part of my job or whatever. And then there's aspects of our job where we're like, fuck yeah, I could do this all day, every single day. I love this shit. And then you get to that little aspect and you're like, oh, fuck, not this again.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you're like, by you bringing that awareness to it, it then also kind of helped you to see it for yourself to then actually continue to make the decisions for you long term.
Yeah. That was probably one of the big like mirror reflection processes that I went through. Um, then on the back end of that was when medication started um, for the ADHD, and that just magnified it even more because it all of a sudden those red things I could do them and I'd just get them done, and it was no longer this huge hurdle for me to like just like every ounce of energy and effort and focus just to get 90 minutes of simple tasks done. But then the medication like just magnified the difference between like my productivity of doing that stuff and then the shit I actually fucking love. It was just like, holy moly, like, and that's where all the thoughts are like, if I just was full time on this thing and just deleted this part of my life that obviously so much positive things came from it, so much impact, so much fantastic value created from it, but ultimately just wasn't serving me anymore. Like if I just stopped that, like what am I actually capable of with enjoying work again, enjoying the process, doing things that I actually just wake up and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I get to do the X, Y, and Z today. Fantastic. Like there's still parts of it that are red flags, but they're not like 40, 50% of my week anymore. And it's just, yeah.
Mm. how much of how much of the aspect of, actually making the decision to close MSc and go fully and all in on the online stuff and training model and all the rest of it stemmed from like almost fear of loss of identity?
That was a big part. When I was squashing it, that was a big part. So when I was squashing the feelings and I remember unpacking this with the psychologist, being like, I would be perceived as a failure, perceived like I put 10 years into this, or at that point, like 8 or 9 years into this thing. Like, am I capable of doing anything else? Um, I this is a funny fucking conversation for you. I don't think I've ever spoken about this.
Well, here we
In
go.
in one of the in one of the not peaks, in one of the troughs of my feelings of anxiety. Do you remember when Will Berkman left the industry?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah, I know everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I'm not. I don't speak to him as often anymore. But in that period, I was very close with Will, and knew a lot of the back end stuff. We chatted and had some very open conversations about it all, and he didn't tell me specifically that he was going to quit. Like, I learnt that when everyone else, but I knew for a few months, like, he's not in a good way. He's going to make a change at some point. And he ended up quitting. And everybody seemingly, it was just like, what the fuck? Like, he was seemingly at the top of his game. He had a full roster. He was just started mentoring. He had like 30 something people in his first intake. I think he'd sold his second intake and then refunded everyone. And I called him and chatted about it. He told me what he was going to try to get into, and he's like, I've got enough savings to, like, I've kind of got 12 months where I don't need to worry too heavily about what I'm going to be doing, and then he slowly started the process of getting into what he's doing now, which is like tech based sales, like, and accelerating his career, like, pretty aggressively. Like, he's a workhorse, he's smart, he's intelligent, he's charismatic, he knows what to do. So anyway, like, 18 months go past after he made that decision. He started working. I called him and I was like, "Hey, man, I think I'm done with the gym. Like, what was your experience?" He told me everything. It got to the point where I nearly did a 1 week internship with his Melbourne office. I was still running the gym and I was like, "Do you reckon they'd just let me come?" Because I'd never worked for anyone. I've always worked for myself. And chatting with the psychologist, I was like, am I capable of anything else? Like, is this all I can do? Like, run a gym? Like, I have a very niche skill set of, like, gym training, this anatomy thing that I do and people seem to enjoy. Like, could I work for someone else? That was a huge thing that was coming up. Chatted with Will. I'm like, "Do you reckon I could just, like, come in and shadow you for a week?" He's like, "Yeah, you could probably fly to Sydney and I'm sure." And he's like, "Oh, we've got a Melbourne office." I'm like, "Can you speak to your boss? Like, can I just, like, shadow someone to see what working in a business looks like? Just like, what is a day? Like, I don't even know. Like, you go to work. Do you have a reset, like a snack time? I got fucking no clue." And it was going back and forth, and he told the boss, and the guy was, like, open to it. He's like, "Yeah, just get Jamie to reach out." I never pulled the trigger on it. And then there was one other funny thing related to that, which was Angus Bradley's brother. I don't know if you know Angus Bradley too closely or follow him, but his brother also left and ended up working with Will, again, doing really well PT wise, but it was just like, I think I just need to start something fresh. And he ended up going in the same business with Will and started breaking all their sales records. And apparently he's just a fucking savage salesman for tech. And he was selling someone near our gym, and he just randomly walked in, and I had a full D&M with him in our offices upstairs. Like, this was all at the same. It was just like all these things were happening. I was like, "Fucking, I'm done here." Like, I'm 1 foot's out the door, and yeah, just funny. But yeah,
The
I squashed
universe
it.
was
I squashed
providing
it for
the
ages,
push.
man. Yeah, there's just, that's all that stuff popping up. But yeah, I don't think I've ever told that story before. But yeah, it was funny couple months.
It's so interesting though, because I know myself, like, I've now been working for myself for the better part of fucking 8+ years as well. There was obviously the period of time where working for Nexus, I was technically an employee for a 6-month period, but I was still kind of doing my own thing, like working my own hours kind of thing. Like, it was not really. And I've always said that I'm like, I just don't think I could ever work for somebody else again, because if I had to sit there and have someone tell me when I could have my lunch,
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Nah, you know what, man? This isn't for me, actually. I'm probably gonna wrap this up for the day."
Yeah. I don't know how I would respond. And ultimately, I made the decision to just continue, just change the trajectory. But
Yeah,
um,
fortunately, you never had to find out.
yeah, I don't know. It still pops up in my head. I'm like, oh, what could I do? And um, but yeah, I think I'm very happy with the changes I've made. And yeah,
Well, as you said,
I
like, it's provided you now that extra ability to be there for Laura, be there for Bubs, like, to actually be a father, to show
yeah,
up for the family and be around that more. I mean, you just said to me before we started the potty, you're at swimming lessons, and like,
smell like
if you're
chlorine.
working a normal, yeah, if you're working a normal 9 to 5, like, that's the stuff you miss.
Yeah,
That's not like, you don't get those opportunities. And I think that that's such a big blessing in a lot of our work is our freedom. And people think that like freedom comes from time, but anyone who knows anything about running a business, whether it be online or in person, is you get away from the 9 to 5 to actually just probably work 50, 60, 70, 80 hour weeks most weeks. And it's
yeah, it
like,
changes,
but you're
and you never
happy to
stop
do
thinking
that.
about it. Yeah,
No, you're happy to do that at that time rather than work a 38-hour week for someone else, because you can see the net benefit at the end of the day. And it does afford you these luxuries where, as you said, you still had an ability to take nearly 6 months off of work and be somewhat still moving forward in that right direction
yeah,
whilst you
absolutely.
decided what was next for you.
Yeah,
Um, which a lot of other people just would never get that ability or that opportunity.
yeah. I was very fortunate last year. Absolutely. And also the
Yeah,
staff.
but
The staff, like Dids especially, Dids stood up heaps, and Dids, Charlie, James, George, I was building up at the time, but they were all very understanding of the situation I was in, and very fortunate to be in that position that I could basically just completely delete myself from the business for basically 6 months. But yeah, it's not like, I don't know if anyone's listening to this, it's not like just, yeah, follow your heart and all your stress goes away. There's still a shit ton of stress. There's still like, it doesn't go away. It's just that, I
no.
don't know, this stress, I'm just enjoying this stress. I also have realized, and this was part of the ADHD journey, I just love building shit. As soon as something becomes a little bit like just process oriented, I just become like completely disinterested in it. Um, and I think part of the gym related things was that, like, the I'd kind of run coaching through its full, like, there was I peaked at like 55 full clients, like management and programming and all of that sort of stuff, and kind of like systemized a lot of those processes, and that became a bit boring for me, and like I just felt like I was stagnant and stale with it. So I pulled back the coaching, then started building the content side of things, and that was exciting and at the start, and building it was great, and then kind of again kind of felt like I just kind of like pulled back a little bit. And so I've kind of adopted that idea of like building, like, yeah, I'm stepped into this full time, and the foundation was already there with training model, but it's like I need to always have something that I'm like working towards and developing. So like every intake of the mentorship, I'd take the feedback on, and I expand on it and build it and try to make it more valuable and try to make it more like really trying to adopt that process, because I learned that about myself through those uh, couple of years there with the psychologist and the ADHD journey. And yeah,
Yeah, that's fucking cool. I think that in itself, again, like, there's been a few moments, obviously, we've touched on throughout your journey with the psychology side of things and things like that, that like how much actually just having that support network has helped to shape the direction with which you went, but also help you to understand yourself better. And I think that there's probably a
more
really
that
crucial,
it's 99%
yeah,
of just a mirror on myself.
yeah, I think there's a really
Yeah,
important lesson for a lot of people, because I talk about it very openly, about going to therapy and regularly going to therapy, and how much of an impact on my life that's had. Like, my ADHD journey, I've always said from day one that getting diagnosed and medicated changed my life for the better. And it wasn't as much as getting medicated and allowing me to actually focus my energy and brain better, but it was actually just having a clearer understanding about who I am, why I am the way I am, how to actively utilize, my strengths better, and how to deal with maybe some of the things that are potentially weaknesses or improve on those things to help them get better or just learn how to deal and manage them better, and that emotional regulation side of things and whatnot as well. But yeah, it's just so, like, a lot of people I think miss that. And so many people are just like, I just don't need therapy. Why would I go do that?
I was like that for years.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like off and on. I'd been the same. I was like, no, I've gone to therapy. I don't need to go back to therapy.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, you know what? That was probably the time where I needed to go to therapy the
Yeah,
most.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I
As soon
squashed.
as
I
I'd
did
said,
oh, you go.
no, I was just going to say, as soon as I said I didn't need it, that was probably the exact moment I was like,
Yeah.
I definitely did.
Yeah. I did the typical male thing of just being like, no, I'll fucking sort it out. I'll make it work. Just more work, more focus. Like, it's fine. More caffeine. Just fucking another can of Monster. Like, just, like, yeah, I just forced my way through it for so long. And then, I actually had a breakdown at work coming off a holiday when I was in Scotland. I went to Scotland for a few weeks with my partner. In between the miscarriage and then the troubles with our first pregnancy, but there's a little patch there where we're like, oh, fuck it, let's just go and have some fun. Went to Scotland for 3 weeks, came back, and I was like, that's what I needed. I needed the break. And then like a week later, I was like in tears in the office, like full breakdown in front of the boys, being like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I had everything that I ever wanted, everything I ever like, my dream of a gym and impact and all of that. Like I was doing it, and I just still felt like just none of it was. I didn't enjoy any of it. And I was like, at the end of that day, I was like, I think I need to work through these feelings. I can't just squash them and just go and live in Scotland. And yeah,
Well, that's super interesting because a lot of people, and this is something I've seen over the years, a lot of people will try and escape their environment thinking it's their environment that's the reason they are why they are. And they'll go on a holiday, or they're like, I'm going to move cities, or I'm going to, sounds a bit questionable as I just moved cities, but I swear I wasn't escaping anything. And then when they get to the next place or the next destination, they're like, oh shit, actually, you know what? Although that was fun for the
just
period of
it comes
time, or
with you.
it's actually, it's me. I'm the problem. I
Yeah.
need to actually sort through some shit and actively, like, there's a huge difference between identifying that and then actively doing something about it. So I mean, it's kudos to you for actually like following that up and wanting to do better, I guess, for yourself, which has probably then allowed you to show up better for everyone else around you,
Yeah.
um, ultimately, and led you down this path that you're on now. But you've
Just,
touched on like,
I
oop,
just
you
want
go.
to just go one last thing, because I think this is an important, at least for myself, this was important. My first stint speaking to somebody formally about it all, I was still resistant to doing the mirror work, where I kind of just was like, oh, if I just talk about this stuff, I'll feel better. And I did the 12-week stint and then kind of had a little break. And then nothing really changed. It wasn't until I actually did the process. And again, we chatted about one of them, like that little traffic light thing. Like, as simple as that sounds, like, she was recommending that for a while, and then I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it. The other one was journaling for me, just when I felt a little anxious, just like started to journal, what is actually in here and what's coming out. And she was always like, you don't need the answer of it. It's just put the words on the paper, and you'll probably start feeling better about yourself. But at least you'll have a little bit of an understanding of potentially what's going on in these periods where you're feeling this stuff. Like, it wasn't until I actually did some of the work, because I think there is kind of like this. Yeah, it's great that everyone talks about mental health and talks about the going to therapy and doing those things, but it's not as simple as just going and chatting. Like, there's processes that it can be very challenging to turn the mirror and be like, what the fuck is actually going on in my brain and my situation. And because I was still reluctant initially, but then once I kind of like just like deshackled myself from all this ego-based thinking and feeling, and just like surrendered to, all right, let's just actually expose some of this stuff. That was when the big changes really started happening for me.
No, that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
think, and I agree wholeheartedly. It isn't enough to go and just, oh, I feel X, and then that's it. Walk away and be like, oh,
Yeah, it's
I've
not
gone
their
to
job to
therapy. I
fix
don't
it.
need it.
Yeah.
No, and I'm similar to you. I use journaling more than any other modality of sort of processing all of these things, because with the ADHD side of things, and I'm sure your therapist has spoken to you about this, I'm sure you've seen it in practice, when our brains are just running and running and running these loops and we can't fix it, I found that if I just write it out, even if it's dot points, even if it's just, this is what's happening in my head right now, I'll come back and look at it later. Then all of a sudden you come back and you look at it later and you're like, oh, actually, no, I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
I've sort of just worked that out in itself, or this has helped me illuminate the problem so that then I'm able to actually work through it later, or take it back to my therapist and work with her through that thing. But yeah, actually putting in the work, I guess it's not too dissimilar to what we do within our jobs as coaches, training nutrition.
I think it's just
like,
life. Yeah.
yeah, it's life, right? Like you give someone a training nutrition plan. It's like, here's the best thing you could ever do. If they don't do it, it's not going to get any benefit from it. But no, it's definitely like a life thing to actually, go and do the exercises. And don't get me wrong, especially as a male, any males who are listening to this, Jamie mentioned it about removing the ego. And whether we want to believe it or not, a lot of the time we will be ego driven when we go in there. We will have a bit of bravado. We will be like, I don't need to work through this, or I'm fine with that, or whatever. When you remove that and you allow yourself to actually be open and a little bit more vulnerable with another person, that's when the actual real work starts to happen and come to fruition. And that's when you can actually start to see a lot of the benefits of the things that you are doing. And some of the exercises they get you to do, they're a little bit weird sometimes. They're questionable. But the best thing about it is there's so many different ways to go about it. So if you genuinely find a solution isn't working for you, you can take it back to them. And instead of just avoiding it, saying, oh yeah, journaling's been going great, but you haven't actually journaled anything, it's like, find another solution. And there will be plenty.
Plenty.
But yeah, I wanted to touch on, because it's something that we've spoken about from the start, and it was in your name of the gym, which is that culture aspect. And you've talked about the boys and how they were such a big support network for you through a lot of this stuff that you were going through and things like that. How did you go about like building and ingraining that actual culture itself? Is it something you feel you drove, or is it just somehow it all just culminated together and it was just driven?
I've been asked this question multiple times at multiple stages of the journey. I have no idea.
Because it was fucking wild. You were doing a podcast tour. You guys are doing like food reviews.
We went hard. Yeah, we went fucking hard.
Everything.
Yeah, I can chat more specifically about that patch. We called that the clout patch, the clout tours. But like when we named it Melbourne Strength Culture, like the idea wasn't like, oh yeah, we're going to like build this culture and have an impact, and like that was it was just like, it was a cool name, Strength Culture. I couldn't grab Strength Culture because someone already had it, so we just put Melbourne on it. And then so like it was never like this thing like, oh, we're going to build this thing. But what I will say, when I was at Cressy, so this was 2016. Prior to 2016, I had done some PT work. Well, I'd done a big box gym for like 6 months and failed. I reckon I had 2 clients. Then I moved to a smaller studio and really found my feet. And I was there for probably 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years. And the thing that frustrated me with working in that space was that all of the PTs, even though it was a small team, there was like 4 of us. We're a very small team, but we all did our own completely different training. And I started learning from, I was training out of Woodford Sports Science Consulting, and John Paul Cowkey was my first coach. So I was starting to get exposed to proper training, like principle driven training, and just like better understanding of the whole thing. And I started like trying to bleed that into the gym I was working at. And like I started programming people rather than just putting shit on a whiteboard and doing all of that. Started programming people, started like formally onboarding people with like process driven things and like reviewing things. And like I started bleeding that in. It would frustrate me that like in this small team, we were still so secluded in what we were doing. And then obviously I was getting exposed to it at Woodford, being like, this is a principle-driven coaching system. He's got 8, 10 coaches all running this same system and everyone's running this thing. And I could see it from the client's perspective, because I was one of the clients, that it kind of like strengthened the gym because everyone's in it together. And like, even though you've all got different goals and there's different athletes everywhere, and I wasn't even an athlete, I was just keen to learn from a gym that was like that. And that's how I started with powerlifting with John Paul Cowkey. But it was just cool to be a part of. Then when I went to America and went to Cressy, it was like that, but tenfold. There was full-blown education processes for the coaches coming in. Even the internship process, I had to do all this stuff before I even got there. There was weekly meetings of like what's going on with the clients, what's going on with the members and the athletes, and like problem-solving stuff as a group. The whole process was very much like, if the team of coaches are not on board in the direction, it becomes very dysregulated at the client experience level, because then one coach says one thing, you go and speak to someone else on the Thursday and they get a different response, and it's like, well, who's right here and all of this. Where I was at Cressy, it was like this thing was just filtered down. Everyone knew what was going on, and it didn't matter if some kid was first day in or some professional athlete was in year 10 working at MLB level. The coaches could help everyone all at once, and everyone felt like it was part of this thing. I was like, that needs to happen. If I'm running this gym, that needs to happen. So I think the only thing that I could say to like what built it was, my focus was always that the gym, like we used to metaphorically say it was the eagle. It was the gym system that was coaching. It wasn't us individually. And it was very particular with how we communicate things and how we say things and how we program things, so that it was a consistent user experience in the gym. That started to get a little muddy once we went more online and people were a bit more isolated with who they were helping. But in the gym, it was always this like top-down model that supported everyone rather than being individual coaches. And I think that is probably what the secret in the source for it particularly was, probably that everyone was on the same page. Everyone knew that there was a bigger thing at play. Our impact with clients could be stronger. The client then felt that their connection with the other people training there was stronger. And I think that was probably what really created, I guess, the secret in the source. But outside of that, the coaches were just fucking good people. Like, they just were. They still are. They're just good people. People that were fun, had other things going on. They weren't just like completely consumed. Even though we had big goals and we were pushing things and stuff, like I'm sure you've come across some people where it just like, it's like they're a one-dimensional person. It's just like, this is all that they are. It's just like, this is it. Quite often they're the hot flurry for a few years and then dissipate and see you later. But I don't know, they're just, yeah, and we leaned into that. We tried to have fun with things, especially when we got to the content side, that little era there. Like, when we started the podcast, the decision was, we are not talking about volume, sets, reps, or any of that. We're just going to talk about whatever the fuck's going on with us. And it just took off. And I think it was just like a fresh breath of air and coming out of the evidence-based era of the industry. And we were just like, fuck science, like, fuck this shit. Like, we're talking about drinking Shiraz on the weekend, getting pissed, eating Maccas. Like, we were just being ourselves. And I think that was another part of just like, oh, these guys are just, it pissed some people off, absolutely. But it also like strengthened the people that, yeah.
Everything's going to always piss someone off,
Yeah,
no matter what you do in life. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, and yeah, 100%. Like, I can attest to that as well in terms of even just from an enjoyment perspective. And I'm sure you guys experience this too. Like, it's all well and good to constantly talk volumes, reps, sets, exercise prescription, anatomy, all the rest of it, but 9 times out of 10, you could probably go to 20, 30 different coaches and find the exact same thing from that. It's actually having that personable aspect, having that personality, having someone come in and be like, oh, this guy isn't going to fucking tear me to pieces if I get a Big Mac on the way home on a Saturday night or some shit. It's like,
on the way to the gym.
Yeah,
why didn't you buy me some?
They're going to tell me where the best pizza is in the area or some shit. Like, it's actually having that personality. And that's one thing that for myself, especially over the years, is like, I've kept clients for such a long time not because of the shit I know, but because I build a relationship with them. I build rapport, I build familiarity, I build connection. And like people just want connection, especially within a gym space. Like, they're probably long days at work or just fucking dealing with shit at home or whatever. And they come into this space and they know that there's some similarities there because everybody's there to train. But then there's like that next level of the community, the connection, the people around them you get to know them all.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved at Nexus too, was I had clients regularly who were like, oh, we're kind of running similar programs. I'm like, yeah, it's almost as if you guys are doing the same competition. You're the same amount of weeks out. And it's like X, Y, Z. It's like, yes, the principles are going to remain the same, but there's different like accessories and there's different sort of rep schemes and things like that, depending upon where you're at and what you're doing. But even then, they're just like, oh no, it was great because it meant I got to bench with like XYZ person instead of just benching alone by myself. I was like, oh, sick, cool. Yeah, well, you can hand him out, he can hand you out, and you guys can train together. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I have a framework with this through my programming side of things, which is that the objective world, so the objective process, whatever it is in the training sense, it's the sets, the reps, the program, the frequency, the volume, and all of that. The objective world as like a circle on like a Venn diagram. Is actually completely consumed by a larger circle, which is the subjective experience. And if you can understand that as a coach and put a little bit more focus in how the actual subjective experience is progressed through the training, the objective training process, and it's all that little stuff. It's if they've got a goal, is there other people that we can like kind of pair this person up? We started running novice comps for this reason. It just created this thing in the gym that it was just like anyone that signed up to it just attended more, was pushing harder, was all of this stuff. Like it had very little to do with the competition and a lot more to do with just this subjective change that happened around the training process, around the community, around their training buddies, around their goal settings and all of these sort of things. Like it's just always a better experience when you just think about some of that subjectivity of training and just life in general. And that goes with coaching progression, as you just said. Like it's generally your best clients, they're probably not even the best athletes that you feel like you have the biggest impact with. It's actually just the people that you get along with and can feel you could be yourself with, they can be themselves with. You can find different random things that you're connected together with and different hobbies. And it's just like, I just get this person just gets me. And like, even if the training isn't that productive, they're still fucking loving it. And they're just absolutely humming along, enjoying the process. It's the subjectivity that actually makes it productive long term. Yeah, so that definitely resonates with me.
Oh, dude, 100%. And I think it's 100% is something as well that like I know you would have seen it countless times of young coaches coming in the industry and they don't quite have that understanding yet. Whether it be through lack of life experience, because nowadays there are kids who are doing PT courses at 16, 17 and barely out of high school when they're starting their coaching journeys and all the rest of it. But it's like you get so caught up in, oh, I have to be about this and I have to be about education and clients only care about what I know. And when you actually start to realize that it's less about what you know and more about how you can actually convey that actually matters more.
100%.
It's having that understanding. It's being able to resonate with someone. It's offering compassion and grace when someone needs it, or a little bit of like empathy, but then also telling them they need to pull their finger out of their ass if they're fucking up.
100%. Everyone knows the at a big box gym, the PT that just is just charismatic and just seems to have the biggest business. They just dominate. Yeah. They've had their clients for 10 years and they're just rolling. They take a fucking Wednesday off. None of their clients matter. The clients still pay them. It's just like this stress-free coaching process. Like everyone knows those coaches out there. It's like, yeah, they've worked that side out more than they gave a fuck about. Is it 4 sets or 3 sets? It's just like, I don't know. Some of this objectivity stuff just starts to frustrate me a little bit, which is weird because I am an educator in the process. And like there are fundamentals you need to know. But we used to joke on the podcast that Jamie Buzz specifically would be like the most important thing for your long-term career projection is how good you are at shit talking with clients. Like when they just 100%. Come into the gym, like how quickly does it just turn into just like a stock standard fun conversation you just have with your buddy? Like the quicker you can get to that point, shit talk, the better off the training process is going to be.
It's that banter.
especially for in-person coaching.
There's nothing worse than being in a gym, and shout out to my best mate Daz, because he is exactly that coach you described a second ago. He's probably the most dominant PT out of EMF Narang, and has been since the day the doors opened.
Yeah, 100%.
Because he's had the same clients since day one, and they just fucking love it. And he's just the most carefree, but also caring person. And his clients will get results. They get what they want. Whether that's a short process, a long process, it doesn't matter to them, because they're enjoying the process along the way. And then you have the other coaches who just stand there and can't talk to their clients, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, that client's going to be gone within about 3 weeks.
Yeah. And they get
You can't have that connection.
because I went through it initially before I went to Cressy, but like sometimes you get a little resentful. You're like, oh, that person doesn't know as much as me, or that person doesn't understand it as deep as me. And yeah, that might be true, but they're still rocking 8 sessions a day, absolutely crushing it. Had a break, clients came back, retention's not a drama. It's like they're doing something significantly right. Like, learn from it. It's very, again, ego brain. It's very easy to be like, oh, that person doesn't know as much as me. Well,
it's the first word in personal training. Personal.
Yeah, true.
And a lot of people fucking miss the mark on that. Or nowadays, especially with the whole rise of online coaching, they don't even see
online
that
is a lot harder
ever.
for that. Online is significantly harder for that. And I think a lot of coaches view the online space as being a little bit less challenging, because it's like, oh, people will just follow the program. People will just check in with me. People will just do this fancy questionnaire that I send them every Friday. It's like, actually, probably not. You probably just need it's definitely harder online.
That was probably my biggest struggle. When I shifted to completely online after, 6 years of face-to-face, and I had been very fortunate that I built up quite a good face-to-face business multiple times. Like, it was the busiest PT at the gym, pretty much any gym I was at. And when I shifted to online, I realized that one of the hardest things for me was actually that ability to shit talk with someone, to actually have a bit of banter, because you can't really shit talk over messages sometimes, because the context and tonality doesn't quite get through. And
Voice
things
message.
can be misconstrued. I'm a big voice message person, or I'm just like, hey bro, I'm going to give you a call.
Calls.
Because I want to make sure that this is like conveyed effectively. Or I say to them nowadays, like, I'll just send the boys a message. I'm like, hey, can you FaceTime me? I'm like a stalker girlfriend who just needs to know what they're doing. I'm like, oh, can you just FaceTime me real quick so we can chat? I just want to see your face while we talk.
Yeah, fucking
but it's that little things, and that's what kind of keeps, ticking 8 years later.
Yeah,
keeps it all moving. So I think that's fucking wonderful. I love that. What's next for you?
Just keep building training model. I've had a fantastic 6 months. I'm ahead of where I thought I would be, which is awesome. I have adopted the AI, world, absolutely. So I've got a 3-month sort of action plan that I'm working through right now to just fix up some of the more structural things around the business. So some of the website related things, some of the automations with emails, and trying to generate my email list a little bit stronger. Like, there's a few like structural things that I'm more focused on in the next 3 months, but over the next towards the end of the year, I'm about to set up an in-person workshop. Cause I do a lot of that, and I've done 4 so far this year. But I think I'm at the point where I don't want to just dip my toes in the in-person stuff anymore. Like, I want to set up a proper 2-day full-blown workshop, like make it proper, make it formal. Don't just like touch on certain things. It's like, no, I want to actually get deep. And I think people are craving some in-person stuff personally. I think just a lot of the education space now is just online courses and stuff, like, from COVID. So that's a big goal, which will be in August. Try to generate some good interest for that and build that up. But it's really just continue to build what I've been doing. The mentorship, going through another iteration of upgrades and stuff, and building that to be better. I'm enjoying building the online business. I've recognized So obviously, like, I thought I was running like this pseudo online business with Strength Culture, but it just wasn't. Now that I'm actually running an online business, just there's so many just little things that can improve the efficiency of the overall just functionality of it, and even just like social media content, like my website, my landing pages, my offers, like copywriting. I'm taking a keen interest in. Just like improving all of those sort of things to try to just improve the strength of what I'm building, I guess. Another thing from my ADHD journey is realizing that, yeah, I build things, I like building things, but quite often there was nothing structurally built around it. And then when I move away from it and go and build something else, that thing would eventually just crumble and fall apart. And I just kind of get distracted by the new shiny thing. So I'm actively not doing that this time. I'm building processes and things that hopefully it will, like, just, yeah. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying building an online business, and I'm enjoying actually doing the process of what the business delivers, which is the mentorships, the calls, the content, the back end content. Yeah,
Fuck yeah. I love that, dude. That's sick.
just
It's
build them,
really
man.
cool.
Just build them.
As you should
Yeah.
be. But I think, again, even in that, right? Like, just within that, like, any coaches, any people out there, really, like, you've been in this now for 14 years, as you said, and there's still things you can build upon. There's still things you can learn, whether it is copywriting or how to better structure an email. Like, when I started learning about email marketing, and I was like, no, I can market. I use Instagram. It's great. I generate clients. But when I started learning about email marketing and the difference that that can make, and then getting into, like, with the supplements side of things, the sub company that I launched last year, like, product-based service, like, product-based selling versus like, service-based selling. I was like, holy fuck, they're two different things.
The whole thing's different.
You
Yeah.
think you're just selling stuff online, but it is not the case.
Yeah. It's actually crazy. And like, it's one of those things, like, you're probably not aware of the impact that it can have until you're aware of the impact that it can have. And then you start making small tweaks and it's like, holy shit. Like, yeah. I'm enjoying it. I'm just building.
I love that. Where can people find
Nice.
you?
Just Instagram's the easiest. It's the central hub, j.smith.culture. Or if you want to go to the training model website, just trainingmodel.com.au. But just go through the Instagram. You'll see what I'm about. I'm happy to chat in DMs every time I do a podcast in this similar thread of conversation. There's always people that are keen to chat. I'm very happy to chat in the DMs if anything resonated, or if you've got further questions about my journey. I guess I'm more than happy to chat in the DMs. Just send me a DM.
Perfect. I'll link all of that as well within the bio and everything like that. But before we wrap up, good sir, there's 3 questions I ask every guest. So
Yep,
strap in.
I'm
First one.
strapped.
If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Invest in Nvidia. No, probably.
Very true.
Yeah. I don't know. Just keep following the shit you enjoy. Like, it's so cliche, but just if something seems to trigger some sort of feeling of like, wow, I just want to do more of that. Just obviously not drugs and fucking alcohol and shit, but like, if there's something related to work that you're interested in, maybe just explore it a bit more. I think all of my best growth periods have come from doing that. So just do more of that.
There you go. Question 2. What is your favorite animal?
Cool. Probably a dog, a little cavoodle named Chili.
Perfect.
Favorite animal? I'm fascinated by blue whales, I must admit.
Okay.
Like, yeah, dogs in terms of like life, favorite animal, but in terms of like, what the fuck is this animal? It would be a blue whale. Like, some of the
Any
shit around
particular
a blue
reason?
whale. Man, once you start thinking about how big they actually are, and like how big the heart is and how big just their entire system is, it's like, what the fuck is this? Kind of makes no
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, crazy animal. Yeah, blue whales.
All right, I love that. We've not had a blue whale yet, so that's perfect. Last but not least, what does strength mean to you?
The objectivity, force production. The subjectivity would be it's resilience, but it's an awareness of the process of resilience. It's not just passive resilience of like just, again, that brute force stuff idea. It's a bit more of like your awareness of your focus of resilience would be the subjectivity of strength.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's a good answer. Not
Nice.
that there's a pass or fail
Yeah.
grade on
Yeah.
any of these, but it's a good one.
80%.
I like that. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But as I said, to
Nice.
everybody who's listened at home, I appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you very much for tuning in. As mentioned, I will throw all of Jamie's contact information into the bio, so you'll be able to find him, throw a post up on Insta, so you'll be able to go through mine and find him as well. Go and suss out his stuff. Go and check out if you're a coach and you want to learn more about anatomy or the human body or how to actually implement shit properly into your system, like into your day-to-day with your clients and all the rest of it. Go and listen and learn, because you will get so much benefit out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Nice.
being here, good sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.